So in this video, I want to talk about how to break negative soul ties or attachments, whether it's emotional or spiritual, to any different kinds of people that are just ending up to be toxic in your life. And we're going to look at this from a biblical perspective as well. So I'm going to start out reading with a verse here from Philippians 3:13 and 14. It says, "Brethren, I count not myself to be apprehended, but this one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind, and reaching forth unto those things which are before. I press toward the mark for the prize of the high calling of God in Jesus Christ." So, what this is essentially saying is that we got to look more toward what we're doing rather than what we're feeling when it comes to breaking certain kinds of attachments. And especially looking at the past from a lens of not lack, because if you look at things from a lens of lacking, you're never going to be fully satisfied. But if you look at things from a lens of growth, a lens of learning, that's when things are going to be magnified in your past to show and represent what exactly it is that you ought to be striving for the future. If you don't learn from your mistakes in the past, it's going to be very challenging for you to move forward and break out of certain kinds of patterns, whether it's patterns of people that you're around. I mean, I know that up until about, I would say, I was 24, something that I recognized was all of the people that I was attracting in my life, even when, like at that point, I was starting to break away from certain family members, I was starting to break away from certain friends. At that point, I started to realize that there was a spirit that I was attracting in each of the people around me, that there was a certain kind of spirit. And it wasn't just that, it was that even in the spirit, there were certain kinds of, I guess you could say, karmic ways of being in the relationship that I had to pay for. Now, when I say karma, a lot of times Christians don't like me talking about that because it's Eastern. And when I say karma, what I mean is that it is reaping and sowing by all intents and purposes. And that's the biblical way to look at karma, is reaping and sowing. But karma, I think itself, as far as the actual root meaning of the word karma, has a deeper significance than just reaping and sowing. I think reaping and sowing is a simplified version, but karma is what you can think about as karma is to be your essence of being, in which you've given certain things to receive certain things. So your karma is more about who you are and what you are as a person, whereas your reaping and what you're sowing is what you do. And this is exactly what the Philippians verse here is talking about. Do not count yourself apprehended, but this one thing I do, forgetting the things which are behind. So when something is resolved from your past, you don't need to look at it again necessarily. You can remember it, but this is something that is very helpful for you to learn as well. What is love? Like, ask yourself, what is love? Really, what is love? Love is still remembering. It's the ability to remember and the ability to grow from that remembering. So when you are remembering something, and I would say that it's vital for you to remember everything, because if you're going to be around toxic people and you're trying to break free from certain kinds of spirits, they're going to probably try to gaslight you. Or if you're around monitoring spirits as well, they're going to try to gaslight you into believing that you're a certain way that you actually are not, or that you're behaving in a certain way that you're not. So it's going to be very vital for your thriving abilities to ensure that you have the proper discernment capable of navigating the terrain of spirits before you. And so a lot of the times when we don't have that gift of discernment, we're going to fall into the repeating patterns. We're going to fall into the things that we've already done before, or that we've already experienced similar things before. I remember, for example, specifically, and I remember where there was a time where I had a friend when I was in my early 20s. And at the time, I thought he was going to be my lifelong friend. Like, nothing could ever come between us, kind of a thing. And that didn't turn out to be the case. But after about a year and a half, his true colors started to show. And I'm not resentful over anything, but just looking back, I saw the red flags, but I ignored them. And I remember specifically there was a time where I actually got to meet his family and like family friends and such. And I'm not going to say names or anything because that would be low integrity on my end, but it would be like, how do I describe this? It was as if I was seeing the spirit of my old life reshaped before me in front of my very existence. But it was just a different mode of the spirit. And this spirit was a spirit of greed. It was a spirit of deception to some degree and false charity. That was the spirits that were there specifically. And when I realized that this seems to me something that I need to overcome, like I put greed, or at least ambition, I would say. I put ambition and giving and emotionally or spiritually or physically in a certain kind of box in my mind where I didn't want to open those certain boxes. And even to this day, there are still times where I'll recognize like it's not like, how do I say this? It's not like I'm completely immune to it. It's just, I know that this is a weakness of mine that I'm going to be continuing to work on for a while. It's that I don't need to be afraid to be ambitious. I don't need to be afraid. And sometimes that like little fear will pop up where it's like, oh, I don't know if I should do that. But then I have the courage to overcome that because I recognize, okay, this is a fear. There is a fear within me. And then it can go away. And then I'm back to myself and I'm back to my pure form of being. And this is part of the meditative state. And this is one of the reasons why I encourage everybody that I do consultations with to meditate. And speaking of consultations, if you've made it this far in the video and you're interested in this kind of topic, please feel free to check out the link below for Regal Change Academy. It is going to be on December 10th, which is just in a few days from now. At 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, we're doing a intimacy support group. And this is just going to be a place where you can show up and we can talk about topics like this. And if you want to sign up, like I said, click in the link below. But anyway, to go on with the topic at hand. Essentially, when you are in a place of constantly thinking about certain things and certain avenues of patterns of being in which inhibit your abilities or hinder your abilities to strive for what you actually want, then this is where meditation can play a huge role, because meditation is the practice of noticing yourself. It's noticing what it's like to be you, right? So when you meditate, what's actually going on is you're just coming back to yourself. And that's the whole essence of the practice. And a lot of times people think that meditation teachers or Zen masters or anything, like these people have like everything worked out for them, and that's just not the case at all. In fact, in the book Zen, the art is it the art of Zen? The Way of Zen. The Way of Zen by Alan Watts. He actually talks about specific teachers that were considered masters in the Eastern world of meditation and Zen, and yet you would still see them like every now and again they'll have like an anger outburst or whatever, and because the student did something ludicrous or whatever. Or you'd see these Zen teachers tell tell their students like your ego is too big. Like go down the street and walk around naked and let people throw things at you. And the person sitting there would be like, "What? That I'm not going to do that." And the Zen teacher said, "Exactly. You're not going to do it. You're not going to do it because you don't want to be humiliated in a certain way." And the whole essence of the teaching, now obviously he doesn't say this like all up front, but the lesson is that, and I'm not saying that you should go do this. I'm not saying that at all. And I'm just saying that the teacher in the book describes the experience of actually going down to the market and walking around naked. What you're doing is you're completely letting yourself be exposed, and it's a training exercise for like understanding that like you'll live through it. Like on the other side, you would live through it. You'd live through it if you actually did it. And again, like he didn't force him to do this, and he didn't say like you have to do this in order to keep like being my student. It was just that he was making a point. He was making a point about the ego and how to transcend certain things. A lot of the times when we're stuck in certain kinds of toxic relationships, we don't want to believe that we're actually the ones that are walking around naked in the market, so to speak. And we have things thrown at us. When we are participating in toxic relationships, that's exactly what we're doing. We're openly telling people around us, yeah, throw stuff at me. I'm an open book. Who cares? Like, I have no boundaries. Like, that's what you're saying when you're staying in toxic relationships that you know to be not right for you. And so that's the lesson. That's the lesson that the Zen teacher is trying to tell him. Is that it's not necessarily that you have to go down to the market. It's that you wouldn't do this if you were actually like, if you knew exactly what you were doing, you wouldn't do what you are actually doing. And to go back to the Bible verse here, that's why it says, "This one thing I do, forgetting the things which are behind and reaching for the things which are before." So you're looking to the horizon and you're looking to take what's actually yours. You're looking to take these new experiences that are going to enhance you, that are going to help you grow. Because if you're not in a relationship where you're helping each other grow, well then, like, what exactly are you doing with your life? It would be better for you to be alone than to participate in those kinds of relationships. And believe me when I tell you, like, I did it myself. I was alone for nearly a year and a half. Now, I still had a job and I still had like a place to go, but for that year and a half, I was in almost complete isolation every single day. When I came home on the weekends, like, I was just completely alone with God at this point. And it took a lot for me to learn how to come out of my shell again, so to speak. But when I did, there's a beautiful quote in the Tao Te Ching, which is another Eastern teaching book. And I've actually done a video on the Tao Te Ching a little bit. You can look that up on YouTube if you'd like. But there's a verse in there that says something along the lines of, he who accepts himself automatically has the world accept him. So when you accept yourself, the whole world is going to accept you. Why? Because as a consciousness, you are the reflection of consciousness itself. We are interdimensional beings that can transcend time and space if we so choose. You can do this. I know that this can sound some kind of like crazy, like it can sound kind of crazy to certain people, but we truly are interdimensional beings. And we can do certain things, and we can really create our own life if we so have the will to do it. Now remember, for women it's the willingness, and for men it's the will. And this is something that I learned from Nietzsche. It's very important for men to have will, but for women to have the willingness. If a woman does not have the willingness to do something, she's not really a woman. And if the man, we could talk about what is a woman now, but but if the man doesn't have a will, then he's not really a man either. That's what I got from what Nietzsche was saying, essentially, and I think that's accurate. There are a lot of different ways that can make you a man and that can make you a woman. But there are only a few ways that are correct that will actually enhance your life. So, in order to break free from those kinds of toxic relationships or soul ties with these people, you're going to have to take a really good hard look at yourself, and you're going to have to sit with yourself, really be with who you are, and accept certain things and qualities of your life that are happening or not happening. It could be either or. So, all in all, with that being said, I hope this message was useful and insightful. And until next time, peace be with you.